Om Shanti, and welcome to everybody. Today, our Friday talk will have a different tone, a different setup. Normally, you hear a straightforward talk, but today it's going to be more of a conversation with a very old friend of mine, and also someone who you probably don't know, because Shirona, she's the one that put together two very special books. Some of you might have seen and read those books. Many of you might not have. But I have those books, and I've had those books ever since they came out. For me, those books are, like you could say, a Bible, or I use them actually like an encyclopedia. I use them for reference, any topic, anything I want to research on, then I use these two particular books. One book is called Companion of God, and the second book is called Wings of Soul. And the person behind putting these two books together is Sharona. And so Sharona is the most accurate person to share with us gems from what Dadi Janki had said. Now, why do I use this word gems? Once somebody asked Dadi, and this was many, many years ago, going back 30 odd years. Once somebody asked Dadi that how come in other organizations, in other temples or churches or etc., there are more people than there are at the meditation center. There are more people that go to other places than they do at the meditation center, the Brahma Kumaris Raj Yoga Center. Why is there such a huge gap in numbers? Because in those times, I think Shirona will know, the numbers were definitely less. And so Dadi's answer was that go to a grocery store and go to a jeweler shop. In a grocery store, you will see much more people. In a jeweler shop, or where you go to buy diamonds and gold, there will be less people. And so she said, the capacity to buy gems is not in everybody's capacity. And so at the end of the session, if one of the co-hosts can show the books, or even now, if they bring the books to me, I will show you the books, and they are a godsend. So what I'm going to ask Shirona to do as we start this program is to tell us how she came to writing these books, because they are very special. Why are they special? Because they are to the point. There's no faffing around. There's no heavy duty reading. short, simple sentences which can work to change our lives. Means we use these gems, and by using these gems, not only do we become beautiful, but we also ourselves become valuable. And so Sharona is based in Israel, and Israel is very often in the news. So you can imagine how tough it must be for her out there. And uh, she's been in charge of our Israel centers since the last 22 years. But prior to Israel, Sharona was based in Boston. And so I will ask Sharona very briefly to share how the shift from Boston to Israel took place, because I normally hear of people going from Israel to other countries, but I never hear of people going to Israel. And I do know how tough security and all of these things are in Israel because I hear from others. So, firstly, if Sharona can share a bit about herself and then how these books, these two special books, happened, Wings of Soul and Companion of God. Over to you, Sharona.
Induben, first of all, I want to tell you what a pleasure it is to listen to you, be together with everyone in the UK right now. And really, I must say that, first of all, I myself use those books like an encyclopedia. And I think that could have been a kind of motivation behind the writing of those books, in the sense that I loved your story about how we come to call Dadi's wisdom gems. It's a beautiful story. And I think it's because I felt like there were just gems lying all over the place. Somehow they had to be pulled all together and organized so that I could get a hold of them as I needed them to. So I think that was kind of my enthusiasm for it. But actually the book, the first book, Companion of God, was a request. It was someone else's thought that it was time to write a book which could serve people who were not studying Raja Yoga, but who are definitely on the same track and interested in the same things, that they should also come to know about these gems. So I was approached and invited to write it, and it was the beginning of a very exciting adventure for me. And I can tell you, I remember feeling that it was magic, because I never really knew what was going to happen next for the book. And you speak about its essence and its simplicity. I can tell you that would be because Dadi was always herself in essence and simplicity. So it was just a matter of pulling such essence from any particular class that I would study of hers and putting it together. And I can say God's hand in this was amazing. I used to feel that this cannot be called work. This is not work. This is pure pleasure, pure amazement, because honestly, I would get stuck. I would not know how this could go together with this or what to do with this. It didn't fit in with the others, but it was so beautiful. It couldn't be left out. And all I learned to do was just sit, be quiet, and I would understand the whole picture. So I think between Dadi Janki's power of spirituality and God himself, this book emerged. I was just the hand who tracked it.
True, actually, yes. What I wanted to ask you, is there any particular gems, not necessarily from the books, but any particular gems from Dadi that you have used in your life, particularly living in Israel, use those gems to find stability? Because we know that Israel is always in some kind of upheaval. And so your surroundings, COVID is just recent, but prior to that, even Israel has had a lot of history of upheaval. So are there any gems that you use to help you?
First of all, I really do feel that the whole of this world is becoming more and more challenging a place, even before COVID. Israel has its own particular issues, but the way things work these days, newspapers pick up and sensationalize on whatever will buy more or sell more. So I don't think Israel in particular is more challenging than any other place. Actually, that's my experience.
True.
But your question is still a very important one and beautiful one, because what use are gems of knowledge if they can't be beneficial for our everyday life? So I can say there are a few.
Would you like to share them with us?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, for example, Dadi used to put her finger on her lips.
Okay. Yeah.
Signaling us to be quiet.
Yeah.
And what this always reminds me of is the importance of not going into too many details of any particular issue or situation, challenging situation. Because another one of her gems was one strength, one support.
That's true. Yeah.
And really, anytime I'm feeling challenged, I have to just check, where am I trying to get my support from? And anytime I'm able to shift it, as per Dadi's example, to taking my support, my sense of well-being from my relationship with God, I'm free. I'm very much more free from any of the influences of that situation, and able to understand, able to see a way forward. And I can tell you one other thing which is connected to that is how Dadi always told us to think less.
Yeah, that was her
For
saying.
me, that's an absolute primary gem, because I'm somebody who is, always overthinking, and that really can take all the charge out of your battery and not able you to.
We're all culprits or victims of overthinking. It's actually a disease. Overthinking, yes, and that is, now you remind me that he did always say, think less. Or she used to say, actually, what she used to say was, don't think.
Don't think.
That's right. She used to say, don't think. We always used to wonder, how is that possible? Don't think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wondered all the time. Because my life was thinking. That's where I was. A very academic, intellectual approach before I got balanced out.
Don't think. Yeah, I haven't heard that for a long time. Don't think.
Oh, that's primary for my life in terms of staying stable, Because, in Duban, there really is a plan.
Yeah.
Spirituality tells us there's a plan.
Yeah.
And so do I really need to get my head into so many different things when there is a plan? There's a director organizing every detail of the plan. And I have come to understand I have just one responsibility, and that is to keep myself happy.
Yes. Something else I wanted to ask you is, what particular gem would you use when someone gives sorrow? Supposing somebody is giving you sorrow through words or through cold shoulder treatment or through their eyes, dagger looks, whatever. What gems would you use at that time to keep yourself happy? So that you're not affected by whatever it is they're giving. You're not influenced by it.
Well, that's a big one, isn't it? That's really, really a big one, but it's major in terms of making progress on a spiritual path. We have to end up independent of what people think, which I think was the most beautiful thing Dadi Janki modeled.
Mm.
She had so much self-respect, you know. We all learned about self-respect by watching Dadi.
Mm.
So I can tell you a story that I never, ever forget. I love it. Dadi shared this in a class, that somebody come to her very hurt, because taking sorrow means somebody was hurting me and I got hurt.
Mm.
So this sister was saying to Dadi, you know, this person said this and said that, and I felt so bad. And then she said this and that, and then I really was so hurt. So Dadi was very sympathetic. Dadi was sharing that. She said, oh, that's true. It isn't nice when somebody throws their garbage at you. And then Dadi said that she said to this sister, but then tell me, what is it about you which made her think that you're a garbage can for someone to throw their rubbish at? So, you know, self-respect, it's such a big issue. And then I can also remember how I'd seen Dadi do this several times, but I remember one time Dadi was moving around the dining hall in Madhuban, and she came across a few sisters who had missed class. They weren't in class, Dadi's class. And Dadi looked at them and said, oh, so you weren't in class this morning. And they gave reasons, they gave excuses. And personally, I was embarrassed just to hear their excuses and reasons, because they were so obviously reasons and excuses, poor ones. And what was Dadi's reaction? In Dubai, what was Dadi's reaction? She said, wonderful.
Yes, I remember that from Dadi. I remember once I'd gone to Madhuban, our headquarters in Mount Abu, and I'd broken my foot a couple of days before. And so I'd gone with a plaster. My foot was in plaster. And so I wasn't even in my white sari, but I had a plaster on my foot, and she saw me and she did not ask any questions, because everybody else was asking me, how did it happen? How did it happen? All she said was, wonderful. That's all she said. And I remember that when you mentioned this word. And then as I was leaving that same trip, as I was leaving, I got better. And somebody else came, Sister Suresh came, and she had her hand in plaster. She'd broken her hand or something. And that is reaction. Wonderful. So it was so nice that she didn't ask why and what and how and where and when, because otherwise you get questions such as, oh, like if I say, well, I fell down, they'll ask, well, how did you fall down? And it's like, well, there's no method to falling down. It happened. And so this word wonderful, everything was just wonderful for her. Even something which we would consider drastic or dramatic or terrible, she would just use one word, wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is a gem, actually.
Wonderful. It is, because that uplifted us.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we know about the law of karma, right?
Yeah.
The law of karma is saying that no matter what's happening, it's wonderful,
Yes,
because you have a chance to finish your karmic account.
Yeah.
So as soon as somebody sees, your broken foot or the hand in plaster and goes, oh, poor thing, how are you? And then you also get all sad and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a poor thing. She never entertained that. Again, she was fully aligned to the plan, the big plan, which means everything that's happening is according to a plan, which is only for my benefit.
Yeah.
She lived that. And so she's always pulling us into that higher framework of reality, wasn't she?
She wouldn't go into the details. How did it happen or what? Just wonderful.
Yeah, because they were irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. So what other gems would you use if someone's giving sorrow?
Well, this is something else that I saw with Dadi. beyond never reacting to, whatever people were doing. She was always trying to help them get out of where they were sitting, And one particular expression that I think relates to that is how she would talk about there are barriers and there are bridges. Barriers make people go back. But bridges help people go across. Always try to be a bridge.
I remember that, But there was something that she added to that. I don't know if you remember. She used the word barriers, blockages. And what was the other word she used?
Bridges, that's all I know. Barriers, blockages, and bridges.
Okay, yeah. So she said to us, are you a bridge or are you a barrier or are you blocked? I remember this, yeah. Okay, so how does that help us to not take sorrow?
Well, I don't know how it works for other people, but for me, it helps me remember that I have a role to play. I mean, my whole life, I wanted to help people. So spirituality is for giving tools so that you're helping and you're being together with others becomes healthy and safe.
So these gems actually work like tools.
Oh, yeah. And firstly, they help you stay safe. Basically what I feel these gems do is keep you, or they start filling you. Because when we're coming to life basically empty, then we are always looking to take. We're using people, we're using situations to try and take a bit of self-respect, take a bit of self-value, take a bit of meaning for my life. We're taking. And actually, this doesn't bring happiness. This actually brings a lot of sorrow. But it's like if I can use these spiritual pieces of wisdom and start doing my taking from God and from the truth of my own self. As a child of God, I have so much value. And in a relationship with God, there's so much love. So all my taking that's what it means to have one strength, one support, right? I take my love from him. I take my sense of myself from him. So like that, I'm in front of people and I'm not a taker anymore. So they can say what they want. They can devalue my presence in their life. They cannot appreciate me. They can do their thing on me. But if I'm like more and more relating, or first I should say, if I'm getting full from inside more and more, then I'm more and more able to relate to what I want to do with my life, which is to give, not to take. And so with that, I'm more able to, think about being a bridge instead of adding to their burden of negativity and waste by reacting. It means I'm more able to respond instead of just react.
If you remember, Shirona, Dadi always used to like saying things in threes. She would use these threes, like even her Om Shanti would be 3 times, which nobody else can do like how she did.
Yeah, really.
And one thing as we had teacher training, we've all had teacher training because we live in centers, then we were always taught that we have to involve the audience. It means they have to be active in the class. And I saw Dadi do this day in, day out. As soon as she sat on that chair, she would make sure everybody said the words Om Shanti. She would not stop unless she heard a response. And so in many aspects, Dadi used threes for everything. Om Shanti had 3 different meanings. So are there any threes that you can recall from Dadi that really helped you? Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
like one I recall is she would, because her English was limited, but one that used to make people happy was take light, become might, and everything right. So she would rhyme. I think you remember this one. Take light, become might, and everything will be right. And so these threes, she knew that people could remember things in three. Anything more would be too much for them. And so are there any threes that you remember in particular which you enjoyed or it helped you?
There, Indu, you got me, because my mind never even recognized that she does that.
Okay.
I didn't even realize there were threes going on, but I can tell you that this story of Om Shanti and how she would say it 3 times, that has become, I can tell you, a mainstay for my life. In fact, every question you've asked so far could be answered with this one particular gem. Because there's so much power in saying Om Shanti, especially the way she defined it, because she said, who am I? Who am I connected to? Who do I have? Because even this word, who do I belong to? In the West, for me, that took a long time before I could really appreciate what it means to belong to God. So I would say, really like connected to as a very practical living resource for my life. But also third one, what is it that I have to do? And I have a little story about that, actually. I take so much power from those three, because talk about essence, talk about simplicity, everything that's powerful on a spiritual study is in those 3 points. So my father was not at all interested in a spiritual study. He was quite a religious fellow and a very good person. But towards the end of his life, he did open up a bit more to what I was doing. He was curious. And he did start taking some of the course, the lessons that we work with. And I gave him some of Dadi Janki's books, and he was very curious about Dadi and respectful. And he asked if he could write a letter to her. So he did. And Dadi responded.
Wow.
And the one thing my father was asking in his letter was, I'm reaching the end of my life, and he was very active, very healthy, very, very fruitful life, very loving and giving. So he was saying to her, is there something that I'm missing that I need to be doing? And this is what she said. That's the only thing she answered. She said, always think about this. Who am I? Who do I belong to? And what is it that I have to do? And I thought, when I saw that, I thought, he's not going to get that. He's not going to get it. It's not going to work. It's going to be a failure in his eyes. The magic and the power of those 3 Om Shantis, he was completely transported. It almost made him become a Brahmin, just those 3. He was so excited about that. For weeks, he said, what an incredibly wise statement. And he started reviewing his whole life on the basis of those 3 points.
Amazing. I remember Dadi once saying about Om Shanti, that Om Shanti, saying Om Shanti to someone or even to yourself is a way to sustain yourself. It's a way to sustain others and to sustain yourself. It's not that you have to do classes and talks and feed people or anything like that, but just that acknowledgement of Om Shanti means, who am I? Who do I belong to? And what is it that I have to do now? I mean, I can see how this would help somebody at the end of their life. It would be really a gem for them.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Amazing story. Nice story. Thank you for sharing that.
There's one thing I want to share too about that. I don't remember exactly the source, but just this awareness that we really have to say Om first.
Yeah.
We really have to come into the experience of the meaning of Om, which is I am an eternal soul. Because it's only in that experience that we get the peace, the Shanti, which is useful for our lives.
Yes.
You know, in Israel,
Yes.
they also greet people with this word peace. They say shalom.
Okay.
It means peace, but they don't have this Om, I am.
Yes.
So there's no real meaning, there's no vibration, there's no energy when they say it.
Okay.
But
yes.
we're learning to say it with that energy and to pass that energy.
Do you have any particular gems that you have used during the toughest times of your life? Like, okay, maybe when you went from Boston to Israel, or maybe with your Jewish background, are there any gems that you have used? Doesn't have to be from Dadi Janki, but gems that you have used to help yourself overcome the challenge or the toughness of the situation.
I think if there would be one, there would be 1,000. Because ultimately, to step into my self-respect, there's a variety of situations which challenge your self-respect. A variety of situations which reveal the many, many ways in which you're still operating from an emptiness inside and you're still looking to take from people and situations. So there are so many different gems, as you say, like, for example, to be detached yet loving.
Yes.
To be loving yet detached.
Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's possible, to be detached yet loving?
You know, it's a little bit like what Dadi Janki once said. Somebody asked her, Dadi, this was somebody who wasn't a student of Brahma Kumari's, but she was being interviewed. Dadi was being interviewed. And so the interviewer said, Dadi, how many hours a day do you meditate? And Dadi Janki said, you do better to ask me how many hours a day I'm not meditating. Because meditation becomes a kind of like, a way of living, a framework of reality. You're living within the framework of the larger plan of it all. And so in the same way you're asking, is it possible to be loving and detached? And I'm thinking, is it possible to not be detached and loving and detached? And this is what I think, the whole of gems and the spiritual study is about. We need to learn a whole new way to love. Because the usual way we've been loving for a long time is not what love is about. It's a love which is filled with neediness, emptiness, selfishness. That's not what charges the battery. It's not what nourishes the soul. But love is what nourishes and charges us. But it's got to be, this pure love, this love which isn't looking to fill itself by giving it. And Dadi Janki was a model of that. And then I feel that,
I remember Dadi gave a very good definition of attachment and love. In very short, essence, she said attachment is taking, and love is giving. Love means to give, attachment means to take. That's how you would differentiate between love and attachment, because they get very confused. It becomes very cloudy. Is it love or is it attachment? And so this was a guideline. The attachment takes and love gives.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So clear. So clear.
This is how Dadi clarified everything for us. Very, very little word. And I always feel from a spiritual leader that what do we want from the spiritual leader, whoever it is? And we want their word and we want their energy, their vibration. This is what uplifts us, their word and their vibration. And one thing I see, something that we were discussing yesterday, that the energy of human beings, for example, doesn't matter who you remember, but depending on the stage or the state of the person we're remembering, we take on board their energy. So if that person is down and we think of them, it's very easy for us to become down. And Sister Janki was saying that when we think of Dadi Janki, you will never go down. You always feel uplifted. You always feel happy. And so this is the speciality of a spiritual leader, is that they can make you feel empowered. This is what a spiritual leader means for us. And so is there anything else you'd like to share? Any other experiences or anything you've learned from Dadi Janki?
Yeah. Something you said, I don't remember what exactly, just makes me remember another specialty of Dadi. Yeah, it connects to what we want from a spiritual leader. What we get from a spiritual leader is that we have somebody looking at us with faith. Somebody is believing in me. My own mother didn't really believe in me, I think. And it's a very precious thing to have somebody in your life who believes in you, to be looked at with that kind of vision. And this is what Dadi Janki did with all of us.
True.
And that's invaluable. You know, I used to think, Dadi loves me so much, so much, so much. But after a while, I came to see that she loves everybody because she's looking at them with pure eyes. She's seeing us like God sees us. And I really feel that the ultimate lesson that Dadi taught was this. If I can do it, if I can purify my eyes, if I can upgrade my ability to love, if I can become an instrument for real upliftment of my brothers and sisters around the world, then so can you. That was her primary message. And she was tireless in proving that to us, that if I can do it, you can do it. This is amazing. And how many spiritual leaders do that, you know? A stereotypical spiritual leader keeps himself up here.
Yeah.
But Dadi offered a love and a relationship of equality.
Yeah.
And this was always amazing. And I can tell you, frankly, it took me years before I could have enough self-respect, enough self-confidence and self-esteem to even understand that that's what she was offering. I was otherwise, it was more like she was the guru and I was the disciple, even though the last thing Dadi wanted was anybody should think of her as a guru. But my own insecurities, when I first came to these studies, was that I couldn't relate to anybody as clearly powerful and wise and pure as she, other than just like bless me.
Yes.
The disciple thing. And then it kind of morphed into like teacher, student, and have somebody you could absolutely trust as a guide, because we trusted her. I used to say to Sister Jayanti, Dadi Janki could tell me to jump off a cliff, I will jump.
Yeah.
And there isn't anybody in my life I would give that kind of power over my life. And that's a real freedom, actually, to have somebody like that. You're really not alone anymore. You got a friend. And that's actually how I think from teacher, student, it came to more like mother, daughter, in the sense, so much love, really so much love, unconditional love. And then slowly relaxing into, she's trying to be my friend. She's trying to get me to relax enough to be a friend, this equality thing. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I saw that very often, that she just tried to make people relax so that they could be friendly and open with her, because she saw that there's that inner struggle or inner battle which is happening with a lot of BK students or students on the path of spirituality, that she wanted them to open up to her, but with a lot of honesty. She was very adamant on honesty.
That's true. My gosh, if we think of gems, that's for sure, Everything about her is about honesty. She was so honest. And again, not the ordinary human definition of this, but honest to her highest, truest self, honest to God. And because she so thoroughly did this work of, owning up to her own defects, her own weaknesses, that's what she knew was possible, and that's what she wanted from us.
Dadi Janki was not only a mentor and a guide and a friend for all of us, but she was an inspiration and an example also at the same time. And I remember her once saying to me that you're only a teacher whilst you're on the stage. Once you're off the stage, then you're no longer a teacher, but you have to play many roles, mother, friend. And so she played those roles. She was an example of that. And have you learned anything from her in that respect, that to be something for others? Like, have you found that from her example, you're able to help others more?
Yeah, for sure. And the first thing that comes to my mind is her humility. So many examples of how, somebody could come to her not having recognized who she is or what she's about, and just like be screaming at her.
Yeah.
So like disrespectful, so insulting. And Dadi, because of her own power, her own inner work, and all the things I was saying about not needing to take, but always being a giver, she just wouldn't react. And afterwards, when we'd ask her, whoa, Dadi, that was pretty intense. How did you do that? And she would say, he is my brother.
Yeah.
He's suffering. This humility. And, I can tell you such a beautiful story. I don't know how much it fits into exactly this, but it stays with me forever. And it's a huge inspiration in terms of how Dadi never let go of her intention to serve, to be of service, to be a bridge, never, ever to do anything to increase our blockages, our burdens, or, barriers. Can I tell you this story? It's so beautiful. There was a very, very big program. It might have been interreligious. I can't remember, but the head of the Muslim community in London at that time was one of our featured guests. And so he was sitting in the front row. And afterwards, was this in London? Yes, it was in London. So afterwards, Dadi called him to a special meeting in her meeting room and also invited me to be there. I don't know why, but it was a wonderful chance just to watch Dadi in action, so to speak. He was a very beautiful soul. You could see it from his face. And of course, his whole story and reputation was very charitable, very wise, generous soul. So he started the conversation. It's a small room. Dadi's sitting here. He's sitting here. I'm sitting in the back. And he looked at Dadi with a lot of love. And he said, this is the first time I'm ever sitting with a Hindu lady. And Dadi Janki looked at him with a lot of love. And of course, this is prime Dadi, right? It's the vibration. It's where she's standing in her head and her heart when she says whatever she says. It's not so much what she's saying, it's the vibration inside. She looked at him with so much love. And she said, you are still not sitting with a Hindu lady. Because
Yeah.
I am not a Hindu lady.
Okay.
I am a soul.
Okay.
And you also are a soul. You are my brother, and I am your sister. The energy in that, the whole time she was like looking at him with that true, godly, eternal, spiritual, brotherly love. And he was melted. So was I melted. We were both almost ready to cry.
Imagine how many barriers she broke in those few sentences. That you're a soul and I am a soul. Yeah.
Got it. He got it.
He got it. Yeah. That is true. I saw that her behavior with everybody was equal. She didn't have preference over one or another. It wasn't like that, I prefer this one to this one. It was equal with everybody.
But also the way she never let go of her reason for being. She understood her role and she loved her role and she played it with so much joy. Yeah. She could have answered that statement in 1,000 different ways, but she got right down to business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I also found, that she knew her role. There was no doubt. There was no, oh, I wonder what I should be doing. Nothing like that. She knew who she was. She knew that she was a sustainer. She knew she was a creator. She knew she was a destroyer of negativity. She knew her role in life. She knew that she had to give happiness. She knew all of that, and she did it all the time, non-stop. She was playing her role very, very well, without.
She knew that those are the things that would bring happiness to her.
Yeah.
To play her part, no matter if people appreciated, not appreciated, applauded or not. And that's why she was such an essentially happy person.
Yeah. You don't see people who know what their role in life is. You always meet people who are not sure what they're supposed to be doing, struggling or whatever. And so it's such a pleasure to meet somebody who knows what her purpose in life is. And it's like today's topic is actually using these gems to fulfill my own potential. And I saw Dadi using gems to fulfill her potential. And those gems, she said to me once that when she reads God's word, then sentences which are very powerful, she will read them more than once.
Yeah.
She will read them a few times. Simple sentences, but they were her gems. She used gems also. I think now it's time to also ask if there are any questions from the audience. If there are any questions, please write your questions in the chat box. Some of you might be wondering which books we referred to at the beginning. So I'll show you one book, and it's called Companion of God. I don't know how you see it there. But the beauty of this book is very light, simple reading, yet at the same time, very deep. And it takes up topics which are relevant to today's lifestyle. So topics like silence, self-respect, whatever we've talked about today, tolerance, cheerfulness, and very little small passages which are very deep and they are very helpful. So the gems are not just for beauty, but to help us on this spiritual journey. It's like I would say you would use these books if you want to fast forward on your spiritual journey. This is what I call a must-have. And anybody who knows me knows that this book goes with me wherever I go. If I'm traveling, then it's in my handbag. And I'm not just saying that, but it's true. I really do appreciate this book a lot. And I often think of Shirona. That's why I thought Shirona is the best person to tell us how
I'm lucky. I'm getting a blessing here.
And there's another book which is called Wings of Soul, and that is also Shirona's hard work. It was her inspiration that there needs to be a follow-up from this first book. So I don't see any questions coming from the audience. And so now I'm going to take this chance to invite Shirona to do a small meditation commentary to lead us into Om Shanti, so that we can all experience Om Shanti. Experience it like Dadi Janki experienced it. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Andu then. So let's take the next few minutes to begin the journey to Om Shanti. Let's use our imagination, because images open the heart. Can you imagine your mind as a room, and that you're stepping into the room of your mind now? And what do you find there? There might be such chaos, such disorder, stacks of thoughts, piles of old memories, the dust of negative feelings, altogether too much, too many, everywhere. And yet, as you survey the room, you notice at the back of the room a door. And you're very curious about where a door at the back of the room of the mind could lead you. So you make your way through, you reach the door, and you open it. And you find yourself looking at a long corridor. Beautiful, high ceilings, soft lighting. And you begin to make your way down the corridor. And at the end of the corridor is a room on the left. And you step into that room amazed. Here is a room which is very big, very spacious, with beautiful furnitures, carpets, such beauty. And you settle yourself into one of the very large, comfortable armchairs. And you're just enjoying this incredible space. Beautiful energy and such lovely, gentle quiet all around. You notice the windows, huge windows, almost floor to ceiling, looking out over beautiful landscaped gardens. And as you're sitting there enjoying such quiet, such beauty, you realize that coming through these windows is a very special golden light. And it's actually this light filling the whole room with this gentle, quiet light. This is what's creating such beautiful quiet and peace here. And you stand up and go closer to the window. You open the window so that these beautiful rays of golden light now come directly to you. Touching you, moving right through you, filling you with that same pure golden light of peace. You feel like you know exactly what it is to be a flower underneath the sun. Because now, here, these golden rays of light coming to you from the spiritual sun above are reaching inside you so deep and just making everything good in you, everything beautiful in you blossom. And you're just standing there, opening to these rays of God's light, of love. And feeling so peaceful, so beautiful, so safe, so good. And as you get ready to leave this beautiful space. And you come back into the corridor, heading back towards the room of the mind. You have this very determined thought. I will not let go of these beautiful rays of God's light, peace, and love, so that I can become an instrument of such love, light, and peace for all my brothers and sisters, the whole world. Om Shanti.
Thank you for taking us through. Okay, and I'd like to finish off today's session with a quote from the book, how Dadi defines success. And why I'm using this particular topic, because our next Friday's talk is also about success. And so you will see from the book, the definition of success is very, very, very different from the definition of success that you will find in the Oxford Dictionary or in any place in the world. And so that is definition of success. Success means to reach such a constant level of positive thoughts that pure actions happen naturally.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to say that again. Success means to reach such a constant level of positive thoughts that pure actions happen naturally. So where will you find that definition of success in the world? Positive thoughts happening naturally. So next week's session, next week Friday talk is Sister Manda, and she's going to be talking about success, which is very necessary for all of us. That's what we all want in our life, success, to be able to make success my destination. I'm not worried about whether I'm going to be successful, but success is in my destiny. And so thank you for joining us. And thank you, Sharona, for sharing the gems you have. And we'll see you all next week, Friday, same time. Thank you. Om Shanti. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.